The sound of screeching metal tore through the neighborhood like a bone saw through silence. I dropped my coffee and sprinted toward the porch, the mug exploding behind me. My wife, Nora, was really yelling. And Nora doesn't yell unless something is very, very wrong. What I saw made my blood go cold. A man in a neon vest was welding a wrought iron gate directly across the base of our wheelchair ramp, our only accessible way in or out. Behind him, arms folded like she was royalty, stood HOA President Deborah Lang. She didn't flinch. She just watched, sunglasses pushed up like she was posing for a luxury ad, not orchestrating a civil rights violation. Nora was stuck at the top of the steps, pounding on the rail with her palm. "You're blocking the ramp." "This is illegal," she shouted, voice shaking with rage. Deborah smiled like she was indulging a child. "It's a gated community, sweetheart. We all have to match." The ramp had been approved by the city, signed off by inspectors, built to code, and paid for out of our pocket. But Deborah decided it violated her so-called aesthetic standards and hired a contractor off Craigslist to put up a decorative barrier, never mind that it sealed my wife inside our home. That evening, our house felt like a prison. Nora couldn't leave to tend her garden, get the mail, or go to her therapy group. I had to carry her down the front steps when she needed to leave and haul her back up when we returned. Each time she whispered, "I'm sorry," into my shoulder, something inside me cracked. But she didn't scream. Nora went quiet. And when Nora gets quiet, that's when things get dangerous. See, Deborah never bothered to find out who she was messing with. Nora wasn't just a woman in a wheelchair, she was a civil rights attorney, and a damn good one. The kind who got state universities to rebuild dormitories, who testified before Congress, who didn't lose cases. She ended policies and careers. By midnight, she was in her office, poring through municipal codes, ADA compliance laws, HOA bylaws, and zoning permits. She filed a cease and desist and attached everything. Photos of the gate, her medical records, a highlighted clause from the ADA that basically shouted, "This is illegal." Deborah got the notice the next morning. And instead of backing down, she declared war. She posted on the community forum that non-standard homeowners were disrupting neighborhood harmony. 2 days later, our mailbox was painted blood red and slapped with a violation for non-approved color scheme. Nora just smirked. "So we're doing petty now?" We replaced the mailbox that night. By morning, it had been ripped out and dumped on our porch like a dead rat. Deborah wasn't enforcing rules, she was targeting Nora. Some neighbors avoided us. Others quietly dropped notes into our new mailbox, saying they supported us but didn't want to get involved. One note read, "She fined me for having wind chimes." I'm terrified of her. But Nora wasn't scared. She was focused. Every email, every violation, every post, she documented it all like she was building a case for the Supreme Court. When Deborah scheduled a closed HOA meeting, Nora rolled in anyway, folder in hand. "This violates Civil Code Section 42 of the ADA," she said, placing it on the table. "And any further discrimination will trigger federal action." Deborah didn't speak, but her neck flushed red, and for the first time, she looked scared. That night, an anonymous screenshot showed up in Nora's inbox messages from a private HOA group chat titled Rampage Plan. They joked about sabotaging the ramp. One board member posted a meme of a woman in a wheelchair. "Just take the stairs, lazy." Another suggested planting weeds and citing landscaping code. "This isn't HOA drama anymore," Nora told me. "This is a civil rights case." She filed a federal lawsuit the next day, citing ADA and fair housing violations, emotional distress, and targeted harassment. It wasn't just against Deborah, it named the entire board. What no one knew was that Nora had an ally. Marky, a neighbor who'd once been reprimanded for flying a pride flag. She'd been sending Nora every vile message. The local news picked up the story. Nora did the interview sitting on the porch behind the locked gate, crisp blazer, calm voice. "This isn't about me. It's about everyone who's ever been treated like an inconvenience." The footage went viral. Deborah released a video calling Nora manipulative and accusing her of weaponizing her condition. The internet ripped her apart. A court date was set. On the morning of the hearing, Deborah showed up late, dressed like she was going to brunch, not a legal proceeding. Her attorney looked like he still had student loans. Nora's documents were stacked like a military dossier. And then poetic justice. The judge rolled in. On a motorized wheelchair. Deborah's lawyer stammered. Nora didn't flinch. Yes or no, the judge said. Did you block this ramp? Yes, the lawyer muttered. Then this won't take long. Nora laid it all out. The permit, the medical need, the retaliation, the chat transcripts. The judge read them aloud. Just take the stairs, lazy. She removed her glasses and stared straight at Deborah. What you did was illegal, discriminatory, and shameful. Then came the ruling. Immediate removal of the gate, full restoration of the ramp, a public apology, mandatory ADA training for the HOA, and erasure of all violations. Deborah was ordered to apologize at the next HOA meeting or face contempt charges. Afterward, Nora didn't celebrate. She just said, this was never about revenge. It was about rights. The apology meeting was the most crowded in neighborhood history. Deborah's voice shook as she read her script. No applause. Just silence. Then something shifted. People began reaching out not just with thanks, but with change. A neighbor with a son in a walker asked Nora for advice on building a ramp. The local disability rights organization invited her to speak. She agreed. She ended her speech with a line that stayed with me. Access isn't charity. It's justice. And our ramp? It wasn't just restored, it was transformed. Neighbors planted flowers along its base. A handmade sign stood next to it. This ramp stands for all. One day, a little girl with pigtails drew hearts in chalk along the ramp and whispered, My brother says you're a superhero. Nora smiled. Tell your brother he's mine, too. Weeks later, a letter came from a federal panel. Nora was invited to speak in D.C. on housing accessibility. She wore the same navy blazer from court. As she rolled into the chamber, people rose. Fairness shouldn't be optional, she said. And access is never a favor. It's a right. Back home, the sun set on a peaceful street, kids laughing, chalk drawings trailing down the ramp. I asked her, do you think Deborah learned anything? Nora shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. But she can't hurt anyone now. And that's enough. She rolled down the ramp, unstoppable. The sound of screeching metal tore through the neighborhood like a bone saw through silence. I dropped my coffee and sprinted toward the porch, the mug exploding behind me. My wife, Nora, was really yelling. And Nora doesn't yell unless something is very, very wrong. What I saw made my blood go cold. A man in a neon vest was welding a wrought iron gate directly across the base of our wheelchair ramp, our only accessible way in or out. Behind him, arms folded like she was royalty, stood HOA President Deborah Lang. She didn't flinch. She just watched, sunglasses pushed up like she was posing for a luxury ad, not orchestrating a civil rights violation. Nora was stuck at the top of the steps, pounding on the